They say
Let's
betrayal
get inside.
always
Too many
comes from
eyes out
people
here.
closest to you.
Agreed. This rain won't
Never
hold them
from an
off.
enemy, never from across the table. It comes from a man who knows your habits, your weaknesses, the way you take your coffee, the wine you trust without thinking twice. On one quiet night in Harlem, that truth almost cost Bumpy Johnson his life. Not because his enemies were smarter, but because his best friend decided loyalty had a price. And that price was $30,000. Picture Harlem in the mid-1940s. Jazz spilling out of nightclubs, cigar smoke hanging thick in the air, money changing hands in dark corners. This was Bumpy Johnson's world. He wasn't just feared, he was respected. In Harlem, Bumpy wasn't a gangster. He was the law. He protected his people, controlled the numbers game, and kept outside forces in check. Italians, politicians, crooked cops. Everyone knew where they stood with him, or so they thought. Raymond, Ray, Coleman knew Bumpy better than anyone. They came up together, hustled together, survived together. Ray wasn't just a partner. He was family, the kind of man you trust to watch your back without asking questions, the kind of man you'd never suspect, even when the room starts to feel wrong. Especially then. The meeting was supposed to be simple. A sit-down at Small's Paradise, one of Harlem's most famous nightclubs. A discussion about territory. A conversation about business. On the surface, everything looked normal. The wine was poured. The smiles were polite. The music played softly through the walls. But something was off. The laughter lingered a little too long. The glasses were filled a little too quickly. And Ray seemed nervous. What no one in that room realized was that this wasn't just a business meeting. It was a setup. A deal had already been made. $30,000 had already changed hands. And the plan was simple. Bumpy Johnson would drink his wine, compliment the taste, and quietly die before the night was over. No guns, no noise, just a smooth, clean end to the most powerful man in Harlem. But here's the thing about Bumpy Johnson. He didn't survive as long as he did by being careless. He watched people. He listened more than he spoke. And when betrayal walked into the room, he recognized it. Not in the wine, not in the money, but in the eyes of the man he once called brother. As glasses were raised for a toast, Bumpy didn't drink. He smiled. And in that moment, the entire balance of power shifted. Because what his enemies didn't know, what even Ray didn't know, was that Bumpy Johnson had already seen this coming. And what happened next would turn a planned assassination into a legend Harlem would never forget. Bumpy had learned long ago that danger rarely announced itself. It whispered. It hid behind friendly faces.
The shipment arrives at midnight.
As he sat at that table,
they've been paid off.
He felt in the air, heavy and uncomfortable, like a storm waiting to break. The men around him talked business, laughed at the right moments, nodded as if they were all on the same side. But Bumpy knew better. Harlem had taught him that silence often said more than words. Small's Paradise had seen nights like this before. Deals that shaped the streets. Agreements that decided who stayed powerful and who disappeared. The club itself carried history in its walls. Music legends, politicians, hustlers, dreamers. Tonight, it carried something else too. A sense that this meeting wasn't meant to end the way it began. Ray sat close by, trying hard to act normal. He talked too much, laughed a little too loud, kept checking the room like he was waiting for a signal. Bumpy noticed everything. He always had. Ray wasn't just a friend. He was part of Bumpy's rise. They'd built their reputation together, running numbers, protecting territory, earning trust in a world where trust was rare. Ray knew Bumpy's routines, his habits, even his taste in wine. That kind of closeness didn't come easy, and it didn't break without leaving scars. The Italians watched quietly. They didn't rush things. They never did. Outsiders to Harlem, but not strangers to power. They sat back and let the tension grow. They believed time was on their side. To them, Bumpy was just another obstacle, a man standing in the way of expansion, money, control. They thought a clean
situation is
solution would be
escalating.
enough.
We need to
But
act now.
Bumpy wasn't just any
Agreed.
man.
No
He
mistakes.
understood territory, not just as land, but as people. Harlem wasn't something you took. It was something you earned. Every step he took in that neighborhood had been calculated, every alliance tested. That's why it bothered him, that Ray Ray wouldn't meet his eyes for long. That's why the wine sat untouched. As the conversation moved forward, Bumpy leaned back and listened. Words about partnerships, profits, and future plans floated around the table. On the surface, it sounded peaceful, but beneath it ran something darker. The kind of deal where only one side expected to walk away. Bumpy felt the weight of it pressing down, but his face gave nothing away. He thought back to the small signs he'd noticed weeks earlier. Quiet meetings that didn't add up. Money moving in strange ways. Whispers that stopped when he entered the room. He hadn't said anything then. He didn't need to. Bumpy believed in patience. Let people reveal who they really were. Let them think they were winning. Ray Ray finally raised his glass again, trying to bring the moment back under control. His hand shook just slightly. Most people would have missed it. Bumpy didn't. That tiny movement told him everything he needed to know. Fear had replaced loyalty, and fear made people dangerous. Bumpy looked around the table, taking in every face, every reaction. He knew this night would change things, not just for him, but for everyone in that room. Whatever was supposed to happen next, it wasn't going to be simple, because Bumpy Johnson wasn't here to play along. And as the music drifted in from the main room, slow and haunting, one truth hung in the air, unspoken but undeniable. Someone had made a move, and soon they were going to find out just how badly they'd miscalculated. Bumpy stayed quiet, letting the room reveal itself. Silence had a way of making people uncomfortable, and uncomfortable people made mistakes. From where he sat, he could see the smallest shifts. The way one of the Italian men leaned back too casually, like the outcome was already decided. The way another kept glancing at the door as if timing mattered. This wasn't just a meeting. It was a countdown. Across the table, Ray Ray swallowed hard. He tried to steady his breathing, tried to look relaxed, but the strain showed. His thoughts were racing, caught between the past and whatever promise had been made to him. Money had a way of changing how people remembered loyalty. $30,000 wasn't just cash. It was escape, safety, a new life away from fear. Or at least that's what Ray Ray had told himself. What Ray Ray didn't see was how closely Bumpy was watching him. Every twitch, every pause, every word that came a second too late. Bumpy remembered the man Ray Ray used to be. The one who stood beside him when things were uncertain, when Harlem wasn't yet theirs. That memory made the present sting, but Bumpy pushed the feeling down. Emotion clouded judgment, and judgment was the only thing keeping him alive. The Italians spoke again, calmly laying out their vision for Harlem. They talked about opportunity, about growth, about mutual benefit. To anyone listening casually, it sounded reasonable, but Bumpy heard the truth underneath it. They didn't want partnership. They wanted control. Harlem was just another piece on their board, and Bumpy was standing in the way.
The compass is clear.
The back
we go
room,
north. North,
laughter
that path is
drifted
too
through
dangerous.
club.
It's the
Music
only way.
played.
I don't know.
People danced, unaware that history was shifting just a few walls away. That contrast made the tension sharper. Life went on, even when decisions were being made that could end it. Bumpy leaned forward slightly, resting his hands on the table. The movement caught everyone's attention. Conversation slowed. Eyes locked onto him. He hadn't said a word, but his presence demanded focus. In Harlem, when Bumpy Johnson leaned in, it meant something was coming. Ray Ray felt it too. His chest tightened. He wondered if Bumpy knew, if somehow, despite all the planning, something had gone wrong. Doubt crept in, the kind that gnaws at you when there's no turning back. He thought about his mother, about the money, about the promise that this would be quick and clean. He avoided Bumpy's eyes again. Bumpy noticed, and instead of reacting, he waited. Because the truth was, this moment wasn't about wine or money or territory. It was about choices. Someone in that room had already made theirs, and before the night was over, everyone else would have to face the cost. The air felt tighter now, heavier. Whatever was supposed to happen next was close enough that everyone could feel it. And Bumpy Johnson sat calmly at the center of it all, letting the tension rise, knowing the real test hadn't even begun yet. Bumpy's mind drifted briefly, not away from the room, but deeper
Gentlemen,
into
the situation
it.
is
He thought
critical.
about how power
We must
really
act
worked
now.
in Harlem.
Are we united
It
in
wasn't
this?
fear alone. It was memory. People remembered who stood up for them, who kept order, who didn't let outsiders turn their streets into battlefields. That was why this meeting mattered. If the Italians won tonight, everything changed. And if Ray Ray had truly crossed a line, it meant something even worse. Bumpy's inner circle wasn't as solid as it once was. Ray Ray felt the weight of that history pressing down on him. Every second stretched longer than the last. He could hear his own heartbeat louder than the music outside. He told himself it was too late to turn back. The deal was done. The money had been promised. Still, doubt kept creeping in. He knew Bumpy better than anyone else in that room. Knew how sharp he was, how nothing ever slipped past him for long. The question wasn't whether Bumpy was dangerous. It was whether he already knew. One of the Italian men shifted in his chair, clearly growing impatient. From his point of view, this was all taking too long. Plans were supposed to move cleanly, efficiently. Harlem was meant to fall in line the way other neighborhoods had. He underestimated the room, the history sitting at that table. He saw Bumpy as a problem to be solved, not a force that had shaped an entire community. Bumpy caught that look too, the impatience, the confidence. It told him everything about how they viewed Harlem. Not as home, not as culture, but as territory. That was always the mistake outsiders made. They thought numbers and strategy were enough. They never understood the people. The wine glasses still sat there, untouched by Bumpy. The longer they sat, the louder they became. Everyone noticed. No one commented. It was as if the room itself was holding its breath. Bumpy let it. He wanted them uncomfortable. He wanted their confidence to crack. Ray Ray cleared his throat, about to speak, then stopped himself. He didn't trust his own voice anymore. Any word might give him away. Any word might seal his fate. He glanced at the Italians, hoping for reassurance, but found none. In that moment, he realized something unsettling. If this went wrong, he would be alone. Bumpy leaned back again, calm as ever. He wasn't rushing. He had time. Whatever trap had been set, he intended to see every corner of it before making his move. This wasn't just about survival. It was about control, about sending a message that would echo through Harlem long after this night ended. The music outside shifted to a slower tune, heavy and drawn out. Inside the back room, eyes stayed locked, nerves stretched thin. Everyone felt it now, the sense that they were standing at the edge of something irreversible. And still, no one made the first move.
Yes,
The shift came quietly,
I understand.
almost
Proceed.
unnoticed. One of Bumpy's men, standing near the wall, stepped closer to the door and rested his hand against it. Not to block it, but to feel it. That small movement changed the room. The Italians noticed. Ray Ray noticed. No one said a word, but everyone understood something had tightened. Bumpy spoke at last, his voice calm, almost casual. He didn't raise it. He didn't threaten. He simply asked a question about timing, about why this meeting had been pushed forward so suddenly, why tonight mattered so much. The Italians answered smoothly, but their words didn't quite match their expressions. There was pressure on them too, pressure from higher up, pressure to deliver results. Harlem wasn't cooperating, and patience was wearing thin. Ray Ray felt his stomach drop. That wasn't part of the plan. Tonight was supposed to be simple, quiet, in and out, but Bumpy asking questions meant the ground was shifting. Ray Ray realized then that the money hadn't bought certainty. It had bought chaos. He wondered if the people who paid him would protect him if things went wrong. Deep down, he already knew the answer. Bumpy leaned forward again, resting his elbows on the table. His eyes moved slowly from face to face, not accusing, just observing. He talked about loyalty, about how Harlem survived because people kept their word. He mentioned how deals fell apart when outsiders underestimated the streets. The words weren't aimed at anyone directly, but they landed where they were meant to. One of the Italians glanced toward Ray Ray, then quickly looked away. That brief look didn't escape Bumpy. It told him more than any confession could. Ray Ray wasn't a partner in their eyes. He was a tool, a temporary solution. Outside the back room, the music grew louder for a moment, then faded again. The contrast felt sharp. Life was still moving, still laughing, while inside, decisions were hardening into consequences. Ray Ray's hands were damp now. He wiped them on his trousers, hoping no one noticed. He felt exposed, like every secret was floating just beneath his skin. Then Bumpy did something unexpected. He smiled, not wide, not warm, just enough to unsettle the room. He spoke about how plans often fail because people assumed he reacted instead of prepared. He talked about how information traveled faster than money in Harlem. The words were simple, but they landed heavy. Ray's chest tightened. Prepared? For what? The Italians shifted again, their confidence thinning. They hadn't planned for uncertainty. They hadn't planned for Bumpy to control the pace. This was supposed to be their moment. Instead, it felt like they were waiting for something they couldn't see. Bumpy picked up his glass, finally lifting it off the table. The movement drew every eye. He didn't drink. He just held it there, letting the silence stretch, letting doubt do its work. In that moment, everyone realized the same thing at once. Whatever was supposed to happen next was no longer in their control. And somewhere between that raised glass and Bumpy's steady gaze, the balance of power began to tilt, slowly, deliberately, towards something none of them were ready for. Bumpy set the glass back down and finally spoke the truth that had been hanging over the table all night. He said he'd known about the deal weeks ago. Not guessed, known. The room reacted instantly. Faces tightened. Chairs shifted. Ray froze like the floor had vanished beneath him. The Italians looked at each other, tried to measure how much damage had already been done. Bumpy explained it simply. Information moved fast in Harlem. Faster than money. A quiet meeting here. A whispered promise there. A sudden stack of cash showing up where it didn't belong. He hadn't rushed to confront anyone, because rushing made mistakes. Instead, he waited, he watched, and tonight, he walked in already aware of how it was supposed to end. Ray's voice finally broke through the silence. He tried to speak, to explain, to justify himself. He talked about fear, about pressure, about thinking there was no other way out. Bumpy listened without interrupting. Not because he agreed, but because he wanted Ray to understand that excuses didn't change choices. Loyalty once sold didn't come back. One of the Italians stood, tension spilling over. He hinted that things didn't have to go further, that everyone could still walk away. Bumpy looked at him calmly and reminded him where they were. Harlem wasn't neutral ground. It wasn't borrowed space. Every move made here carried weight, and mistakes here didn't fade quietly. Then Bumpy revealed the part no one expected. He hadn't just known about the plan. He'd turned it around. The arrangement that was meant to end him had already cost his enemies more than they realized. Quiet calls had been made. Lines had been crossed in reverse. The people backing this move weren't as protected as they thought. The Italians understood it first. Their confidence cracked. They saw the situation for what it had become. A failed play with consequences reaching far beyond this room. They backed down, choosing survival over pride. Money changed hands, not as victory, but as admission of defeat. Ray sat there, stunned. The deal that was supposed to save him had collapsed. The people he trusted to protect him were already stepping away. He looked at Bumpy, searching for something familiar, something forgiving. But that version of Bumpy was gone. Bumpy stood, straightened his coat, and looked around the room one last time. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He said that Harlem would remember this night. Not for betrayal, but for the lesson. Power didn't come from shortcuts. And trust, once broken, never came cheap. As the room emptied, Ray was left behind, facing the weight of his own decision. Bumpy paused at the door, just for a moment, not out of cruelty, but clarity. Then he walked out, leaving silence to do the rest. The unexpected twist came later, when word spread through Harlem that the money meant to buy Betrayal had been turned into protection, used to strengthen the neighborhood. By the next morning, destroyed. Harlem story already knew legend, something had happened, not because a man's paradise, but because another refused to be taken down. No bodies dragged. Bumpy Johnson, yet didn't just survive. Unmistakable. He controlled. People felt in the way conversation stopped. When he reminded everyone watching that in Harlem, way outsiders, intelligence suddenly always outlasted treachery. Whatever had gone down behind that closed door, Bumpy Johnson had walked out standing taller than before. Ray disappeared from the streets soon after. Some said he left town out of shame. Others believed Bumpy quietly cut him off from every connection that mattered. No public punishment, no spectacle, just absence. In Harlem, that kind of silence spoke louder than any threat. Ray's story became a warning passed in low voices about loyalty, about choices, about how quickly trust could turn into isolation. The Italians kept their distance. Plans to push deeper into Harlem slowed, then stopped entirely. Meetings were canceled. Calls went unanswered. They understood the message clearly. Harlem wasn't a place you entered by force or deals made in secret. It was a place guarded by memory, community, and a man who saw 10 moves ahead. Bumpy Johnson hadn't just protected his territory. He'd reinforced the rules. What surprised people most was what Bumpy did with the money. Instead of flashing it or using it to tighten his grip, he moved quietly. Buildings were repaired. Families who had lost breadwinners found rent paid without explanation. Shop owners felt pressure, lifted where it mattered most. Bumpy didn't announce it. He never needed credit. His power had always come from understanding that leadership wasn't just control, it was responsibility. The back room at Small's Paradise stayed closed for a long time. When it finally reopened, no one rushed to sit at that table. Too many memories lingered there. Too many lessons. People said you could still feel the tension if you stood in the doorway long enough. Whether that was true or not didn't matter. The story had already settled into Harlem's bones. Bumpy carried on, but something in him had shifted. Betrayal had a way of sharpening a man. He trusted fewer people, listened even more closely, and moved with even calmer patience. He didn't talk about that night. He didn't need to. The outcome spoke for itself. Those who respected him understood why. Those who didn't learn to. The takeaway wasn't about fear or revenge. It was about intelligence, about preparation, about knowing that real power isn't loud. It waits, it watches, and when the moment comes, it acts without hesitation. Bumpy Johnson survived because he understood that truth better than anyone else in the room. In the end, the story wasn't just about betrayal for $30,000. It was about a man who refused to be cornered, who turned a setup into a lesson, and who proved that control doesn't come from force. It comes from clarity. Harlem remembered that. And long after the music faded and the night passed, the lesson remained. Because in Bumpy Johnson's world, you didn't win by striking first. You won by being ready.